Welcome to Mom's Life Made Simple, the podcast for moms who want to go from chaos to calm, from overwhelmed to organized, and to find balance between family responsibilities and personal growth. I'm your host, Chanel Nielsen. Let's make mom life simple. Hey, you guys, so good to be here with you today on Mom's Life Made Simple. I'm excited to talk today about your daily big three and really how this process of choosing a daily big three can help you and can really work for you to simplify your life, to get some things off your plate, and to really make things feel a little bit easier. So, the idea for this episode came because one of my current clients that I'm working with is really struggling to make the daily big three a part of her life. And so we've been doing a lot of coaching around this, and she has had some questions and some resistance and things come up. And so these are things that I've heard before, but I thought would be helpful for you to really learn how to work through these and how to make the daily big three work for you. So before we dive into that, let's start with the review of the week. This comes from Caitlin Daybell. Caitlin says, Chanel has so much valuable information on here. Love this podcast and will definitely continue to listen. So thank you so much, Caitlin. I appreciate every single review. I read all of them. I love it when you guys leave reviews. If you have not yet, please leave me a 5-star rating and review. That helps other people find the podcast, and maybe I'll read your review as part of the opening to one of the podcasts coming up here. So let's go ahead and dive in on the daily big three. So what is the daily big three? Instead of focusing on a really long to-do list, what the big three helps you to do is to say, okay, these are the three most important things for me to do today. Now, before I started the process of doing a big three every day, I would really just make a long list, kind of a brain dump. Okay, what are all the things that I need to do? And I'd write this big old long list of things that needed to happen. Well, for example, on this list would go order new pants for my son because he ripped his pants at church the other day. How does that even happen? But he did. And so he needs new church pants. And alongside something like that, that's maybe on the more trivial side or easier for sure, would be record an episode of the podcast. And this whole long list. Now, when you have a big list of maybe some bigger things that are more important and some littler things that aren't important, nothing is prioritized. And for me, when I look at a big long list, what I want when I'm looking at that list is a quick win. I want that hit of dopamine that comes when I cross something off the list. So what's easy? What can I do right now? Well, something like order some church pants on Amazon. That's fun. That's easy. I can quickly do it, check it off, feel like I accomplished something. But what happens is when you do your to-do list that way, in the order of easiest to check off, you're actually not focusing on what's the most important. So the big three says, okay, there might be 20 things that I would like to have happen today, but what are the three most important? Now, how do you decide what's the most important? Well, the most important to help you become who you want to be tomorrow, to help you grow into your future self. When I'm talking about most important, that's what I'm talking about here. What is actually leading you toward the future that you want to have? Yes, it's important for my son to have new pants for church that aren't ripped. But in the grand scheme of things, if he went to church in those pants one more week, it probably wouldn't be that big of a deal. Where if I don't make bids for my future self, if I don't take the time to do the things that grow me into the person who I want to be, then I'm not creating that future that I want to have, right? It's just a little bit deeper and a little bit more important because I'm focusing on what I want to have happen long term. So that's how I determine which things on my to-do list are my actual big three. So that's what a big three is. Now, let me talk about some of the problems that have come up with clients that I've worked with when they're trying to do a big three and they're struggling with this concept. So, number one, it all feels important. How do I decide what's important? If you look at this long list of, all these things, you can say, well, it all needs to get done. I need to do the laundry. I need to make dinner. I need to buy the church pants. I also want to work on things like creating my podcast or working on my book or going out and training for my marathon or whatever goals you're working on. It all feels important. So how do I decide which things are the most important things? So this is where you say, okay, what are my specific goals? What am I trying to accomplish? And that's how you determine your big three. You want those things. If you got your big three done today, then tomorrow you would be that much closer to your goals. Now, I don't know any of us who are like, oh, my goal is to be 100% done with the laundry every day, to be the laundry queen, right? And to have all the laundry perfectly done, perfectly folded. It never sits in the washing machine overnight. That could be a goal that I work on. But anyways, I digress. Whatever that goal is, whatever your actual goals are, that's how you're determining your big three. There's things that matter. Are you seeing what I'm saying here? It's not just the things that need to be getting done because you're the mom. It's the things that are going to work toward your goals. So yes, it all feels important. But which are the three things that if you did them would help you make progress toward your goals? Number two problem that comes up is I'm not getting my big three done every day. So I make this list of the big three of what matters to me, but I'm not getting it done. Okay, one thing that we want to do is we want to have really big goals out in the future. Really big goals in your 3-year goals and your 5-year goals. But the things that you do every day, you actually want to make them pretty small. You want to make it so you can definitely check those off every day. That creates an opportunity for you to have a win every single day, to be like, yes, I did these 3 things. Those 3 things were important towards my future self. They mattered a lot to me, and I got them done. So for me, today is a recording day. I'm recording this podcast. I actually have several podcasts to record, but on my big 3, I knew because of other things I have going on, I'm not going to be able to record all my podcasts and a course that I'm working on. All that went on my big 3 is record 1 podcast episode. That's the relevant thing on my big 3 for today, because I know I'll be able to check that off. Now, if more time opens up in my schedule and I'm able to do more and record a little more, then I may end up recording a second podcast today. Awesome. That's just another win. But I'm not going to do the opposite. And I'm not going to, for one of my big 3, say record 4 podcast episodes, because that's really hard. It takes a lot of motivation to want to sit down and record 4 episodes. I'm not sure if I have the time. There's all kinds of things. So I want it to be small enough that I know I can get it done. And incidentally, speaking of recording podcast episodes, all that I needed to do with this podcast today is hit record and record it. I had already outlined it. I had already created a title. I had already figured out what review I was going to read. Everything was ready for me to go because those were on my daily big 3 last week. And then today, hit record and record the podcast. I want them to be that small so that I can check them off and so that they're getting done. Another thing, if you're not getting your big 3 done every day, is to really look at, are you creating the space in your day to do these big 3? When specifically are you going to work on this list? If you are, running around all day, running errands, and you're never actually looking at your list, and you're not setting aside time to work on projects, then those big 3 are probably never going to get done. So when is the time in your day? When is the space in your day that you're going to work on your big 3, that you're going to work on these things? And if this isn't a habit that you have yet, then you want to make sure that you are being very intentional and very clear with yourself and putting it in your schedule, even if you need to. For me, I work on my big 3 when my son goes to school. My little guy is in half-day school, and so he goes, and that's when I work on my list. starting with my big three. So number 3 problem that comes up with implementing the big three is people sometimes want to put on habits, routines, and stuff that will get done anyway. Habits, routines, and stuff that's going to get done anyway is not part of your big three. So I mentioned laundry earlier. Laundry is one of those things. It's going to get done anyway because it has to. If everyone's clothes are dirty, you're going to be sure to go wash some clothes. It's something that someone else can do in your family. It doesn't always have to be done by you. That goes in that category of stuff that will get done anyway. Habits and routines are also things that don't make it onto my big three. For example, it's really important to me to get in daily self-care. One of the ways that I do that is by doing a daily yoga practice, daily meditation. Those are both part of my morning routine. Those happen every day before pretty much anything else has happened. And so those don't need to be part of my big three. They're important to me. They're happening every day. But because I have a routine set up, because they're already a habit, this isn't like, oh, I better make sure and write this down as one of my big three, because what I'm putting on my big three are the big three things that I want to make sure and do and cross off. If, on the other hand, I wasn't regularly doing self-care, or I wanted to start, say, a yoga practice in my day, but it wasn't already happening, then I think that would be an appropriate place to put in, an appropriate thing to put in my big three, to say, okay, I am going to do yoga every single day, and put that as part of your big three until it becomes a habit. So your big three are going to often lead to habits, but once they're already established as a habit, they kind of can move off of that big three list. They're not something you need to write down and make sure that you are prioritizing as part of this big three list. And I think that's really important because this is a problem that comes up because people think, well, and this is number 4, actually, another problem that people say, I can do more than 3 things in a day. Well, of course you can do more than 3 things in a day. That's fantastic. Do more than 3 things in a day. Some of those things you're just going to do because you're human. Some of those things you're going to do because you've already created habits and systems around them. Then there's a lot of middle ground. There's a lot of things that need to get done, but how do you decide which things go first? That's the whole purpose of the big three, that you are prioritizing the important over the urgent. You're doing the things that matter for your long-term self instead of doing the things that are just coming at you all the time. So if you're having a hard time when you have this list, deciding which ones you should prioritize, ask yourself this: what if I could only do 3 things today? If I could only do 3 things today, what would my tomorrow self be glad that I had done? Or maybe you want to go even out further into the future. What would my 3-year self, 3 years from now, what would I care that I did today? Another way to phrase that is, what's going to last? What am I going to do that's going to last? And while the laundry may not last, maybe your relationships with your family, you're going to care about those in 3 years, right? You're going to care about those tomorrow. Those matter. And sometimes doing laundry can lead to a stronger relationship in your family because your kids are grateful that they have clean clothes to wear. You get to decide that. What are the things that I'm doing today that actually matter toward my future self? Now, once you have written down those big 3, these are the big 3 that I'm going to do today, and you've done those big 3 first because you know they matter most to who you want to become, I think you'll find that you have more time in your day. Hopefully, those big 3 are check-offable. Like I mentioned earlier, they're things that you can get done, and you'll be able to look at the greater list, the list that has things like order the church pants, and you'll be able to go and do those things, but you're doing them in their proper order. They're not taking the place of the more important things that you need to do. So the purpose of having a big 3, it sets boundaries around what you have to get done. That means that instead of looking at a list of so many things and just feeling overwhelmed because you need to get them all done, you can look at this list of 3 things and say, if I do these 3 things today, I know I did the most important things. And the things that aren't as important, they might still be on my list for tomorrow, but they're not as important and they will wait. And that's okay. It puts that boundary around what you have to get done, and that helps you feel like you're winning when you get the most important things done. Instead of, have you ever done this? I used to do this all the time. I would have something that was important and I really knew I wanted to work on it. And I would work through the rest of my to-do list, but I wouldn't do this one important thing. And I would push it to the next day. And I would keep rewriting this same item over and over and over. And I would feel like I was failing, not doing this important thing that I knew I wanted to do, but somehow could never make the time for. Big three says, do that thing first. Another thing that the big three does, it lets you be off. There's a phrase called psychological detachment. Psychological detachment means when you're not working, you're really off in your mind. You're not sitting there thinking about work. Now, you may or may not work in the traditional sense, but if you have some kind of project or some kind of thing that you are working on, it can often take over in your mind and you find yourself thinking about it all the time and like, oh, I still need to do this. I need to do this. All this little mind chatter of things that you need to do when you're with your husband, when you're with your kids, when you have this time that you could be doing other things and maybe time that is scheduled to be off, but your mind isn't off. Well, what the big three does is because it creates those boundaries around what you needed to do today, it allows you to turn off. It allows that psychological detachment because when you start to hear that little voice in your mind, like, oh, and we need to do this and we need to do this, you can quiet it down and you can shut it down pretty easily because you can say, hey, that wasn't one of my big three today. I got my big three done. That can go on the list for tomorrow. I'm done with what I needed to do today. It allows you to turn off. Big three allows you to practice the important over the urgent. And it also creates momentum. When you've done those big three, and then you look at these littler things on your list, you can sometimes fly through those and just really quickly accomplish the other things that you need to have your life run smoothly because you've already tackled the things that matter, the things that are a little bit more challenging, a little bit more long-term, and you can feel good about that. So I hope this has been helpful to really help you choose your daily big three. Every day when I'm closing out the day, whether that's in the afternoon before my son comes home from school or sometimes in the evening before I go to bed, I make sure that I know what's coming the next day. What are the big three for tomorrow? What are the three things that need to happen tomorrow to help me become who I want to become? I encourage you to practice that same technique to create a big three the day before. So you wake up ready to go, ready to accomplish those big three, and you will find it makes a huge difference in your life. So I hope this has been helpful. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you next time. Bye. One more quick thing before I go. So if this has been helpful to you, you need to check out Mom's Life Made Simple. That's my 3-month group coaching program. And now is the time because I am now taking calls and opening the group for April. We'll start April 4th. So if you're listening to this when it comes out in March, we have a couple weeks and I limit those groups. We do small group coaching, so 10 maximum in that group. I will soon be transitioning from that small group model. So if that is a way that you learn best, come and join me now. We have so much fun getting to know each other, working together, coaching and going deep and really giving you the answers that you need to help implement the things that we're learning. So you can get more information at chanelnielsen.com/coaching. Go ahead and check that out and let's hop on a call and get you all the information that you need to make the best decision for you. And if it's right, to join me in Mom's Life Made Simple. All right, that's all for this week. Have a great one. Bye. Thanks for listening to Mom's Life Made Simple. Need some help making your mom life simple? I offer group coaching programs using my 4-step method called the Mom's Method. This is a process of manifestation, organization, mobilization, and simplification that will give you the balance, progress, and joy you're looking for. Visit ChanelNielsenCoaching.com or find me on Instagram or Facebook at Chanel Nielsen Coaching. I love to hear from you. Reach out with your questions, your feedback, and let me know how I can help make your mom life simple.